Broadcasting from the Unshackled studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's WilmsFront Snapshot news program, coming to you on this Monday, the 24th of November 2025. It's the 18th anniversary of the view his election now as the beginning of the end of prosperity in Australia. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we finally have a summer's day. It's been freezing of here lately. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube channel, the WilmsFront Rumble channel, and on my WilmsFront X account. Hello to everyone in the live chat. Breaking news tonight: in the final sitting week of the Federal Parliament, Pauline Hanson has worn the burqa again in the Senate. This was after her private member's bill to ban the burqa was denied by the Senate. So she decided, if you're not going to ban the burqa, I'll wear it into the Senate. And of course, this hilariously triggered all the right people. Now, I was just told by my audience that you can hear me here in the studio, but you couldn't hear that clip that I played. So something is a bit wrong here. Let me see what is up in my sound settings. I think I know why. All right, take 2 of this. You should be able to hear this now. I don't know why this is doing this. If not, I'll just have to proceed with the rest of the show without any audio. Now, as I was on air last Monday evening, the Victorian Liberal Party spill. Well, at least I can hear myself on that replay there. As I was going to air last Monday evening, the Victorian Liberal Party spill was underway. So in the afternoon, a cross-factional delegation went to now former Victorian Liberal opposition leader Brad Batten's office and told him that he'd lost the support of the party room and he should step aside. He called a party room meeting for Tuesday and a spill motion was put forward. Now, normally when there's a delegation that goes to the leader and say your time's up, that's normally because the numbers have been worked out. And so on Tuesday morning, Jess Wilson was elected unopposed, the 35-year-old first-term member for Q. the spill motion, so she was elected unopposed, but Brad Batten lost the spill motion. So for those of you unfamiliar with what a spill motion is, it's to spill the leadership positions. And so Brad Batten lost that 19 votes to 13. So of course that means he didn't contest the leadership, as it was since he lost the spill motion. Sam Groth was re-elected the deputy leader against the former deputy leader, David Southwick, Shadow Police Minister, which I was glad about because David Southwick, his main shtick is to basically have a permit protest system in Melbourne, Victoria, to limit our freedom of speech in the Melbourne CBD. Now, Jess Wilson, she talked about she had plenty of sound bites which were on display in her various press conferences. So she talked about a line in the sand, the party room has spoken. Let's hope this actually works, this clip. It's coming through my Rodecaster, so I don't know why it is not coming through on the actual YouTube feed there. So this must be an issue with OBS. Now, Jess Wilson also spoke about that she was a millennial. We heard about that more in the multiple media blitz that she did on the various networks, Sky News, Channel 9, ABC, 3AW. So she's a little bit younger than me. Now, as I said to my audience last week, I actually knew Jess Wilson when I was a Monash Liberal student. She was president of the Monash Liberal Students, and back then I was in the Liberal Democrats, which is now the Libertarian Party, and she tried to convince me that the Liberal Party was moving in a more libertarian direction. Obviously that didn't happen, but I guess it showed that she could sell a message, even though what she was trying to sell to me didn't turn out to be true. Now, in her term in Parliament, she gained a reputation as a social liberal progressive. She was the only Victorian Liberal MP to back the voice to Parliament. There's been some misinformation that she supported the treaty. She opposes the treaty, but she wants to remain the Victorian Liberal Party committed to net zero by 2050, despite the Federal Party having quite publicly dumping it as a policy last week. And now back when I knew her, she was in the Young Liberal IPA, Institute of Public Affairs, the free market libertarian think tank faction, as was Evan Mulholland, who retained his position as the deputy leader in the Legislative Council. I saw that Gideon Rosner, a former Institute of Public Affairs public figure, said that he was rejoining the Victorian Liberal Party to support his friend Jess to become Premier. If she was elected next year, she would be the youngest Premier in Victoria's history. Her husband, Aaron Lane, he was with the Institute of Public Affairs for a while. I mentioned that he was disendorsed as a Liberal candidate in 2014 by the Premier, Dennis Napthine, for 2 tweets that were deemed to be homophobic. He is a law lecturer now. They have a young child together. And now Liberal Party elders such as Michael Kroger and the former federal treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, sing her praises and say that she'll be an outstanding leader and Premier, and she's got enormous talent, but she's got it all ahead of her. She will have to she's got it all in front of her to do than to just talk in sound bites. She said that her priorities were getting down the debt, housing affordability, ending the crime crisis, and also getting Victorians the health care that they deserve, which of course is how you're going to do all this when we're nearly at $200 billion worth of debt. How can you do improve service delivery, cut taxes? How is that fiscally possible when Jeff Kennett, which the Victorian Liberal Party, they've been waiting for the second coming of Jeff Kennett for the past 30 years. He had to make some really tough decisions when he was Premier. The last time the Victorian Labor state government sent the state bankrupt. So she's got it all to prove. And now there was quite a few eyebrows raised that it seemed that one of the key instigators of this now, Jess Wilson, she had to be convinced to run for leader, and one of the key instigators of this leadership coup, and was rewarded as the position of Victorian upper house leader was Bev McArthur, who is the main social conservative power broker in the Victorian Liberal Party. She was at, I remember, one of the Women Will Speak, where she spoke and got partially hit by the egg that Trans Tifa threw at the women. But she's tough as nails, Bev McArthur, so she didn't rattle her at all. It's interesting that although we have a millennial leadership ticket with Jess Wilson 35 and Sam Groth 38, Bev McArthur is older than their combined ages at 76. Obviously, US President Donald Trump has showed how it can be done. And a Deputy Upper House leader, Evan Mulholland, I don't know his age, but he's in his young 30s. Now, I noticed there was a lot of online conservative backlash to this Liberal leadership change, given that there were 2 polls which showed that Brad Batten and the party were ahead of Jacinta Allen and Labor, though there was a news poll later in the week which had the coalition 51%, Labor 49%, 2-party preferred. And Jess Wilson, even though she'd only been in the job less than a week, as the preferred Premier. Now, so there's, like I said, there's a lot of people disappointed in Bev MacArthur because she was a vocal defender of Moira Deeming, and Jess Wilson voted to expel Moira Deeming from the Liberal Party room. Obviously, the history of the Victorian Liberal Party room, they spend more time fighting each other and seem to hate each other more than they do the Labor Party. This was the Mark Knight cartoon in the Herald Sun. So it has Jess Wilson. I'll be continuing our former leader's focus on serious knife crime in the state. And you can see the knife in Brad Batten's back. Although, do we call it in Victoria now a political machete? Did someone dump a machete bin inside the Liberal Party room then that day? There was actually one unnamed Victorian Liberal Party MP who fantasized about the MPs he felt he needed to shoot, which that's quite an extraordinary thing to tell a journalist. And it was interesting that all the journalists, they all had their puff pieces about Jess Wilson ready to go, and they all had the talking point that Brad Batten was one-dimensional, a focus on crime. And there was a lot of also commentary, the fact that Brad Batten, who it wasn't a blue blood, come from a Liberal Party dynasty like Jess Wilson. Her father was an MP, chair of the Robert Menzies lecture. Brad Batten was a former police officer and Baker's Delight franchisee from out in the suburbs. His electorate of Berwick out in Melbourne's southeast, and Jess Wilson representing Kew, a very wealthy suburb in Melbourne. I saw the host of Two Worlds Collide podcast alleging that somebody in the UN made the call to the Victorian Liberal Party MPs and told them that Brad Batten was going to dump net zero, and so they better install Jess Wilson. I thought that was a bit of a stretch. Now, a Liberal Party fundraiser that was scheduled for Crown Palladium on November 29, which is, I believe it is this Saturday night. Yep. Has been cancelled or just postponed, is the spin, after there was a flood of cancellations. Now, there was also later in the week a New South Wales Liberal Party spill. Now, again, it was similar in a way that the new leader of the Liberal Party in that state was drafted, so it didn't look like they had blood on their hands. So Kelly Sloan, first-term member for Vaucluse, which takes in the federal electorate of Wentworth, so very wealthy area in the southeastern suburbs of Sydney. Although she's a first-term MP, she's in her early 50s. She was formerly a Channel 9 journalist and the CEO of Life Education Australia, which millennials might remember as the Harold the Giraffe bus at primary school. So, which was always exciting to go to that. And you also remember she deleted her X account because she claimed because of death and rape threats from neo-Nazis, though she told Sherry Markson. They were quite chummy, these two journalists, when she went on her program a couple of weeks ago now. And and said she'd been thinking about deleting her ex account for a while. Would that be because there is this post of her licking caviar off the back of her hand aboard a super yacht? So she very much looks like she rubs shoulders with the rich and famous in Vaucluse there. Not it's so that wouldn't look good in Western Sydney, though. At least she's licking caviar off her hand there. She's not snorting white powder up her nose. Now, as I was mentioning, that Mark Speakman, the New South Wales, former Liberal Party leader, he's 66 years old. So he was actually quite old, but looked younger. So also from the moderate faction, backs net zero. He also backed the voice to Parliament. He basically said, I'm going nowhere, but then he was tapped on the shoulder. And so there was this clean handover of power. So Kelly Sloan could be elected unopposed. And also it's a all female Liberal leadership team in New South Wales. So Natalie Ward was re-elected as the deputy. So a lot of people are saying, what about what's happened to the Liberal Party's woman problem? The female leaders in the two biggest states and at the federal level. And then on the weekend, Amelia Hamer, the failed Liberal candidate for the federal seat of Kooyong at the federal election, won pre-selection for the state seat of Melbourne, held currently by retiring former opposition leader Michael O'Brien, who claimed that Jess Wilson will be Jacinta Allen's worst nightmare. So Amelia Hamer, well, if she doesn't lose to an Attil again, it'll be a female MP replacing a male MP. So the girl bosses are taking over the the state Liberal parties now. So Kelly Sloan, she also said that she was sticking with net zero and blamed the dysfunction of the federal party for brand damage at a state level. So Victoria goes to the polls November 2026, so a year away, last Saturday in November. And then New South Wales goes to the polls last March in 2027. Now, it also should be noted that the South Australian Liberal Party under Vincent Tarzia is also supporting net zero, despite the members voting to dump it. And as they're still going to get wiped out next March. Labor Premier Peter Malinowskis will be re-elected in a landslide. The WA Liberal Party under leader Basil Zemplis is keeping net zero despite the membership voting to dump it. And the Tasmanian Liberal government under Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe also supports net zero by 2050. Kelly Sloan also said that she opposed cutting migration, saying that we need migrants to look after aging population because of a declining birth rate, even though, well, she opposes a more development and infrastructure in her own electorate of Vaucluse. She even opposed a new Woolworths, I think, in Wallara. So she wants more immigration, but is a NIMBY, so doesn't want it in her electorate. Now, the New South Wales Libs bill followed the New South Wales National Party spill. Gurmish Singh, the member for Coffs Harbour, was elected unopposed after Dugald Sanders stepped down to focus on his family, which he said wasn't related to his daughter, Charlie, starring in an OnlyFans documentary, though nobody would blame him for stepping down to focus on his family, given that that's his daughter's chosen profession. Although Bonnie Blue hasn't been spotted in Australia yet, the other Brit OnlyFans sex challenges, Lily Phillips, has landed down in Australia. We don't know if she's got the correct visa. Now, Gurmish Singh, he is a Indian Sikh, though he doesn't like to be called a Indian Australian because he said his family have been here since the 1890s, and so he asks how many generations do you have to be here to be a Australian, though still follows the Sikh religion. He does speak with an Australian accent. He is a farmer from Coffs Harbour, and so there was lots of commentary. The Liberal Party doesn't need quotas to elect female leaders and to have ethnically diverse leaders. Now, the killing season, as it's called, refers to the final sitting week or weeks before the end of the year or before a large break, has claimed 2 Liberal leaders. Will it claim the job of the federal Liberal leader, Susan Ley? There was a news poll that was released last night, which was the same in terms of the Labor primary vote at 36%, the Coalition at 24%, One Nation was at 15%. The Greens, they went up 2 points, which is, well, sort of temporarily stops their decline. So two-party preferred Labor's gone up to 58%, the Coalition 42%. Now, Anthony Albanese has net zero approval, pardon the pun, and Susan Ley, she has minus 29 in her approval rating. And Anthony Albanese is double Susan Ley as preferred Prime Minister, 54 to 27. But was interesting, this news poll decided to poll the preferred leader of the opposition. So Susan Ley at 21%, Andrew Hastie at 15%, Ted O'Brien, the deputy leader and shadow treasurer, at 3%, Angus Taylor at 9%, Tim Wilson at 6%, and Don't Know at 46%. So the almost half of those polled don't know who would be the best leader of the Liberal Party. Now, so it looks like Susan Ley, unless there is a secret coup underway, which they haven't even tipped off any journalists, unless Susan Ley makes a big error. She's been selling her party's a half-baked new energy policy, because although they've got rid of net zero by 2050, they're still committed to Paris and talking about have a energy agnostic to the what's called the capability investment scheme. So she's got a piece of paper, but it's still there's a lot to be fleshed out. And she's talked about a immigration policy, which at the moment a figure hasn't been put forward, but that migrants coming into Australia will have to sign a statement of Australian values. And one of those, it seems, Australian values that migrants will have to sign will be to respect multicultural, diverse Australia, because as I brought you last week, the one of the National Socialist Network White Australia members who took part in the protest outside the New South Wales Parliament House, Matthew Gruter, who was an immigrant from South Africa and who'd been here 3 years, was a civil engineer, had his visa cancelled, and rather than allow him to comply with that, they decided to bash in his front door at 4 o'clock in the morning, all guns blazing. The Australian Border Force then put him into the Villawood Detention Centre amongst general population. So you would assume a bunch of brown illegals. You wonder if they hoped that something something violent would happen to him. And according to Tony Burker, the Home Affairs and Immigration Minister, he said that those who don't like modern multicultural Australia and demanding people leave can lead by example. He did a big sanctimonious speech in the Australian Parliament today. His sanctimonious speech last week was interrupted by flies because with summer, the bloody flies keep coming. Now, also last week, Joel Davis was arrested and charged with using a carriage service to menace and harass. So this was the Australian Federal Police. They're still of them arresting Joel. Now, this video doesn't have any sound here. So they picked him up in Bondi. Look at that fat Australian Federal Police officer. Did he get in the back there and like try to basically sit on Joel? How's that guy an Australian Federal Police officer? He's about as, I would say, as fat as Luke Cornelius, the Assistant Commissioner here in Victoria. Now, Joel was denied bail because the magistrate is deemed that he had breached his South Australian bail by leaving the state, because remember, he was arrested for allegedly having a Nazi symbol belt buckle. So the South Australian legislation that's already in place, that's anything that resembles part of the Nazi ideology. And Chris Minns last week announced even further its legislative hate speech laws, which he said would give police courts greater powers to combat Nazism and racial hatred. So it will ban conduct which indicates support for Nazi ideology by invoking imagery or characteristics associated with Nazism without reasonable excuse in public. This includes such as Nazi chants or slogans. While Nazi symbols are already banned in New South Wales, I'm quoting Chris Minns here, the disgraceful rally outside New South Wales Parliament earlier this month highlighted the need to strengthen laws. So somebody engages in this conduct will face up to a year's imprisonment or a maximum fine of $11,000. If it's near a synagogue, Jewish school, or the Sydney Jewish Museum, it'll be doubled, 2 years in prison or $22,000 fine. And for refusing to follow this direction without a reasonable excuse will become an offence punishable by a fine of $2,200 or 3 months in prison. So basically, they're wanting to outlaw any protest that is National Socialist ideology, which, again, this could be challenged in the courts. And I know that representatives of National Socialist Network Wide Australia vow to challenge all of these laws under Australia's implied freedom to political communication. But it's at the moment, these new laws and these arrests of National Socialist Network members and now the White Australia Party are basically just a means to an end. So Joel actually missed the birth of his first child. The magistrate didn't care, didn't give him a compassionate, limited bail. And you wonder if the process is part of the punishment here. So I think the reason why also they wanted him remanded in custody, this is until at least December 3rd, is because Joel was the most prolific National Socialist on social media, Telegram, Rumble. So there's obviously going to be no Joel Davis show for the next 2 weeks. And so they really want to chop the head off the snake. Now, it should be noted that the National Socialist Network Wide Australia, they did have a give, send, go for Matthew Grunter and his wife and child. The wife, who was also an immigrant from South Africa, her visa status is unknown. They know that there is no means to challenge this deportation because the Immigration Minister, Tony Burke, has absolute power. I saw that in response for people saying that people saying, "Oh, how come you're now against deportations?" Well, they're pretty mask off now. Well, you could argue they've always been mask off. They support the migration of whites and believe that it should be people of color who, well, as the name suggests, White Australia. They want to bring back the White Australia policy. When they say they're against mass migration, they're against mass migration of people of color, and they want to deport the people of color already here because they believe that nobody who is a person of color can't be an Australian, even if their family has been here since the 1890s, like the new leader of the New South Wales National Party. Now, also arrested, so it's part of this new Australian Federal Police, the task force, the National Security Investigations team. They also arrested Stefan Araculis, who also is known as Australian Meditations, who was proclaimed by Thomas Sewell, it was almost a year ago now, as Persona non grata, because Thomas Sewell accused him of siphoning off NSN legal donations to spend on cam girls and prostitutes. Now, he was charged with harassing, using a carriage service to menace or harass Lydia Thorpe over that video where the Aboriginal flag was burnt, a Nazi salute was given, and there was that sign in the background that said Lydia Thorpe, Abo Whore. He has been arrested and charged again with making more phone calls and emails to Lydia Thorpe's office, and actually went outside her office to stomp on an Aboriginal flag. So he's been charged again with using a carriage service to menace or harass. So he is in custody as well, but before the Melbourne Magistrates Court this Thursday as well. And given that he narrowly avoided prison by pleading guilty and getting a corrections order, you would say that he is likely to get a term of imprisonment for that. Now, if they're not being arrested and remanded, then they're being debanked. So Jack Altus, he's already been debanked, he said, from several banks. So he's the leader of NSN White Australia, New South Wales. So the latest was Members Equity Bank to shut his bank account. So there's also going to be a lot of corporate pressure put on to basically cut off because even though somebody like Nigel Farage was able to overcome being debanked, given that it's bipartisan in Australia to make life as intolerable and insufferable for anyone who is a National Socialist as possible, I don't think the Ombudsman will do anything. You wonder if, because Telstra, they recently reversed their domestic violence policy, which would terminate the service of anyone accused of domestic violence and give the phone number over to the accuser. So that's been overturned now, thanks to Bettina Arndt. You wonder if they'll introduce a policy that if you're using our internet or phone to have to take part in National Socialist activity, will terminate your service. I don't want to give Telstra any ideas there. And now Thomas Sewell, last week, it was actually a couple of weeks ago, his Supreme Court bail application was successful for when he was charged for allegedly leading the attack on cap sovereignty. Though he has a curfew at night, he's banned from being in the Melbourne CBD. He is laying low at the moment, though I saw he did a podcast recently. Now, the countdown is on to the social media ban for under 16s on December 10. So under 16s are warned to download all their photos from Instagram, Facebook before December 10. And in fact, Snapshot users are being asked to verify their identity either through Bank ID or digital ID or facial recognition. Now, Jim Jordan, who is the chair of the United States Congress House Judiciary Committee, has written to Julie Inman Grant. He can't compel her from all the way in Australia, though I assume if she goes back to the USA, she will be subpoenaed. And congressmen and women want to ask her questions about her infringements on Americans' First Amendment by her geo-blocking orders. Remember, she tried to the entire world scrub the stabbing of Bishop Maumari Emanuel. Jim Jordan in this letter here called her a zealot. So it's a very strongly worded letter. Now, she said that she'll give this consideration. She rejects that she's engaged in global censorship, saying she's just enforcing Australian law. I'm just following orders, even though I wield the power given to me to its maximum capabilities, and I've even lost court cases to X Corp with my takedown notices. Now, New South Wales Libertarian MLC John Ruddock is leading the Digital Freedom Project and is launching a High Court challenge to the under 16 social media ban, saying it infringes on the implied freedom to political communication. But of course, under 16s can't vote, so I'm not sure how well that will go. Catherine Deves, who is a women's rights advocate, is also a lawyer, is also taking part in this because obviously that's the argument that they're going with. But of course, this is going to be another form of surveillance. Even if digital ID is banned as the only source of age verification, it will be a mass invasion of our privacy. We will be tracked even more on social media. Now, some bad news. The City of Adelaide missed out on hosting COP31 next year. Oh, it seemed that Anthony Albanese was so disappointed with it, even though it was part of his, I think his the 2022 election commitment that Australia would host a COP. But given that the cost of living increases has been driven by electricity increases and will continue into next year, despite what Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen says. So it could have come at the worst possible time. So Anthony Albanese seemed let Turkey, or Turkey we're supposed to call it now, host COP next year. So it's sort of like, we can't have it all. We gave it our best shot. But it was going to cost $2 billion to host COP in Adelaide, and it goes on longer for the Olympics. It goes on the pomp and ceremony and then the conference itself for about 3 weeks. It's still going on in Brazil, and it caught fire, the COP venue, which I don't know if they blamed it on climate change, but it was basically a metaphor. They couldn't come to an agreement to phasing out fossil fuels. I didn't think they would, but it seems as part of a compromise, Chris Bowen is going to be president of COP negotiations. So he's not president of the COP, but president of negotiations, which is like a nothing position. Though I saw Susan Ley and her shadow ministers in Question Time now calling Chris Bowen a part-time energy minister. How can he do both? So he's probably not getting paid for these negotiations. So we'll see. Well, it'd be great if he would step aside as climate change and energy minister, because he's easily both the most destructive and incompetent minister in the Albanese government. But hey, 1945, it's Herbert Ver Everett, Doc Everett, the Labor foreign minister, was able to have that job and be the first Secretary General of the United Nations. So I guess it can be done, and even though they just had the telephone back then. But the renewables rollout, which a lot of it has, a lot of the wind turbines, solar panels have been imported from China. So what happened to the Australian Labor Party getting Australian labour to build the renewable energy structures? So it has been discovered that the wind turbines made in China have asbestos in the brake pads. Apparently the rest of the public is low. So if you're going past a wind turbine, you might get some asbestos in your face. Because we need to worry about asbestos again. Then there's been discovered Chinese Communist Party kill switches in electric buses in the UK. So there's fear that they could be in our solar panels and our wind turbines. And there's also concerns that Uyghur slave labor could be used in the wind turbines. And this, of course, exposes the hypocrisy again of the Labor Party and their climate environmental agenda, is that they they're all about getting Australia's emissions down, but they're happy to outsource environmentally polluting and destructive manufacturing to China and other developing countries. So they can please the environmentalists at home who don't seem to care about what the rest of the world is doing. The hypocrisy. Now, last week, New Zealand announced a ban on puberty blockers for children, though, according to the Minister for Health over in New Zealand, Simeon Brown, it is for new children who are seeking puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. And this ban will be in place while there is a clinical trial in the United Kingdom, because Wes Streeting, the health secretary over there and a suspected main rival to Keir Starmer's prime ministership, announced that his Labor government would be extending indefinitely the issuing of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to minors. This is while a clinical trial takes place. Now, clinical trial, this is just code for we're going to give a new bunch of children as young as 10 puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, but we're going to call it a clinical trial. We're only going to do it for 2 years, and we're going to basically give them to any child who says they want them, which is 226. So how can you call that a trial where it's just you're just resuming what you had banned before, but just calling it a clinical trial? And this is probably why it's a bit dangerous for New Zealand to outsource something as critical as further investigations into the effects of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to another country. Now, as I've mentioned in a previous show, the Queensland government, they have announced a pause on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones only in public hospitals, while Professor Ruth Ryan does a review. Though here in Victoria, we had on Trans Day of Remembrance, which is about victims of transgender violence. And of course, should say nobody deserves to be violently attacked or killed because of how they identify. Having said that, they shouldn't put themselves in situations where they're deceiving sexual partners. That's not an excuse for provocation. I thought I'd just say that. The Victorian Equality Minister, Vicky Ward, announced free birth certificate changes. Under Victorian law, you're allowed to change the sex on your birth certificate every 12 months. As long as to the opposite sex or whatever you want, as long as it's not obscene or for an improper purpose. So you can't do it for a prank or a laugh. And despite transgender people in Victoria getting everything they want from the Victorian government, it's still not enough for them. And so there was a trans day of protest in the Melbourne CBD yesterday. Trans were diverted. Sorry, it was actually on Saturday. And of course, they tied in anti-police, anti-Israel messages into it all, just lump all the things in together. They want cops out of pride, even though the Victorian police, they have all their gay and lesbian liaison officers Now, of course, it's never enough, and they still want to be victims. Now, probably the worst news to come out of the United States this past week that Marjorie Taylor Greene, after Trump announced that he would endorse a primary challenger to her, announced that she would be resigning from Congress effective January 5 next year. And she, in both her statement and video, slammed politicians from both sides of betraying the ordinary American, and she didn't want her Georgia district to go through a really grueling primary where lots of money would be thrown. Her biggest hater, which is Laura Loomer, claimed that she was resigning on that date to get a congressional pension, which is a paltry $8,000, $7,000 per year. Yeah, that's a huge pension, and but they're also claiming that her net worth increased from $700,000 to $25 million. Are you accusing her of insider trading like Nancy Pelosi? You've got control of Congress. Why don't you ban, if that's how you're alleging she got that extra money? Now, Trump danced on her political resignation. They had a very chummy meeting with the communist mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, and said, yeah, it's okay if you call me a fascist. Yeah, go on ahead. It was incredibly chummy. Now, it seems that Donald Trump respects winners, even if they're politically different from him. That's probably why he likes Elbow so much. He commented on Anthony Albanese's landslide victory, and of course, after the federal election, said, I don't know who the other guy running against him was. A real backhander at Peter Dutton, who, of course, said the best way to handle Trump is to give him everything he wants. Though, of course, all levels of government have to get on, not just in the United States, but in Australia. Though it did look really weird that it was more like a meeting of a foreign leader. Zoran Mamdani was born in a foreign country, Uganda. He's an Indian Muslim. Obviously, it would be wrong of Trump to deny New Yorkers federal funds because he doesn't like the mayor. I know here in Australia, the voting public hate when there's funding disputes between federal and state governments. Also, despite Trump's main the main issue he turned on Marjorie Taylor Greene was her insistence, along with Thomas Massie, of releasing the Epstein files. He called it a Democratic hoax. It said that called on US Congress to pass a law to release all the files, but Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, gets to basically redact all of the files on national security grounds. Well, as many as she deems to be necessary for national security. So the Epstein files were on her desk, then they didn't exist, and now she needs to redact them because national security implications. Which, of course, I wonder how they could compromise national security. Could they potentially lead to tensions between the United States and its greatest ally? Now, there have been, despite the fact we're told that there's no list, there have been new people implicated. Their relationship with Epstein has been released. So Larry Summers, the former uh, do you call them chancellors in in the United States? Vice chancellors, the head of Harvard. So he actually sought in 2017 sought romantic advice from Jeffrey Epstein. Then Noam Chomsky has praised Epstein as a highly valued friend, offering use of Epstein residence for academics to discuss politics. And another one, Lawrence Krauss, who emailed requesting a jet ride to Germany to propose Men of the World conference with Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton. And some of these names, they might come as a shock to some not so much. Now, apologies for all of the technical issues throughout the night. I will upload, I think, to other like Rumble and Odyssey. I will upload a edited version, replay with no mistakes. And now it's a big week for events. So coming up, beginning this Thursday, the 28th of November, is the 25th Melbourne Underground Film Festival at the Black Sheep in Hawthorne. You can view the program by viewers viewing using the QR code on the screen. So it's cash at the door to get in, keep cash alive. So make sure that if you're planning to attend, you've got some cash, and you also buy a few drinks or a lot to support the Black Sheep, who last year stuck their neck out to support Muff, who have been had several venues cancel over the years. There's been a determined effort to cancel. Richard Wollstonecroft, he has announced that this will be his last Muff Festival as organizer. He's going to pass on the baton. He had thought about passing it on in years gone by, but didn't want to give the cancel culture vultures a victory. And now this Saturday in Sydney and this Sunday in Melbourne is the Put Australia First rally. So this is Monica Schmidt's civic nationalist rally. So it's at Belmore Park in Sydney on Saturday, 29th of November. So they said they're marching for immigration reform, not stopping mass immigration, freedom from an enforced digital ID, and affordable energy. Now, the speakers in Sydney will be there was a fake one that claimed that Thomas Sewell was a speaker. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but it was hilarious that Monica just felt she needed to publicize that was fake news. So the speakers will be Stuart Bonds, who was recently the One Nation candidate for the seat of Hunter. Edwin Newsy, who is a Black African who I don't know who he is. Lyle Shelton, a federal director of the Family First Party. Ali Bezadek, who looks Middle Eastern. Lachlan Meyer, who is a young white man, and Lorraine Henshaw, who is a fifth-generation Australian. Then the next day, it is the Melbourne one on Sunday, the 30th of November. So they're both at midday. So they are meeting at Flinders Street Station steps and marching to Flagstaff Gardens. So the speakers are going to be for that. Nick Patterson, Morgan Jonas, musician Kelly Newton Wordsworth, I don't know who she is, Pastor Offa Mongur, who is either a Maori or Pacific Islander. He was the one that had that, big horn at the Charlie Kirk vigil. So obviously there's a lot of Maori and Pacific Islanders who are hardcore Christians. I remember his daughters sang also there. They were very good. And Warren Pickering, who was the lead One Nation Victorian Senate candidate who just missed out. And appearing at both rallies via video is Tommy Robinson. I know that there has been some criticism of Tommy Robinson being announced as a speaker, even if it is via remote, because it's supposed to be Put Australia First. Tommy Robinson is obviously a nationalist activist, though he did spend a few weeks in Israel. That's been another criticism of the Put Australia First rally, that it's that all the speakers are Zionists. We'll see on Saturday and Sunday whether there is any mention of Israel. Well, that would go contrary to the Put Australia First. But the fact that they have got Tommy Robinson beaming in, the Socialist Alternatives front group, the campaign against racism and fascism. They have used the fact that Tommy Robinson is going to be speaking. They're wanting to try and get the Muslims who were with them during the weekly pro-Palestine protest to come out. So it's their poster says, "Unite to oppose the far right. Racists off our streets blame billionaires, not migrants." Does that mean they're blaming the billionaires for bringing in migrants over? That's a bit confusing there. Defend the right to protest. Well, we all agree with that, but as long as it's not violent, you don't throw rocks again at Victoria Police like you did at the March for Australia on October 19th. So they are meeting at the State Library on 11:30 a.m. So if you are planning to go to the Put Australia First Melbourne one, please stay safe, avoid the State Library. And we'll see what the Civic Nationalists pull off, because this is, of course, the counter march to Australia, which it seems would appear under a Beck Freedom and Jesse Stewart's national leadership, that they're pretty much in agreement with the National Socialist Network, White Australia, that people of colour can't be Australian. I mean, that would be fair to conclude. There was the Civic versus white nationalist debate hosted by the Dusty Bogan, Ben Shand on X last week, between Shallow Cal, who's the leader of the breakaway Australia Marches, March for Queensland, and Lawrence McIntyre Watts News, who's a white nationalist. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and viewership tonight. I'll be back next Monday. Hopefully, everything will run more smoothly tonight. Have a great week. If you're in Melbourne, enjoy the good weather, and I will see you next show. Good night, everybody.